The Easton family name in Boston means two things: old money and architectural power. My father, William Easton, ran his firm like a kingdom. And I, Alara, was the quiet footnote, the daughter who was only useful when she was silent and compliant. I earned my degree in architectural design with honors, not through connections, but through sheer effort. But to them, my achievements were always just a side project. I lived in the shadow of my older brother, Jason. I was the capable one who was never trusted. I was the backup. I craved their love, but only received their condescension. What happens when the quiet daughter finally decides she's done being quiet? I spent 2 decades being the compliant sister. That night, the good girl died. The strategist was born. Survival demanded a new blueprint. I am Alara, a 28-year-old architect from the powerful Easton family in Boston. I spent 2 decades being the compliant sister. That night, the good girl died. The strategist was born. Survival demanded a new blueprint. My brother, Jason Easton. The heir apparent. The golden boy. From the moment he was born, he was destined to take over my father's architectural firm. He had the name, the looks, and the charm. Everything but the actual talent required for the job, Jason's successful projects. I was the one pulling all-nighters, fixing the structural flaws and making sure the client contracts were sound. He got the credit, the praise, and the promotions. I got the satisfaction of a job well done, and a deeply rooted resentment. My parents didn't just love Jason, they worshipped the idea of Jason. His mediocrity was excused, my competence was seen as a threat to his throne. They valued lineage over merit. That simple, toxic rule was the foundation of the Easton Empire. I spent years cleaning up his messes. But one day, Jason created a mess so large, it threatened to bury me entirely. What was that disastrous project? The double standard was the air I breathed at Easton Architecture. Jason would spend half his week golfing with clients. I was expected to manage his workload and mine. My father called it teamwork. I called it what it was, subsidizing mediocrity. After I successfully landed the massive city contract, the one Jason nearly botched, my father promoted him to vice president. My reward? A pat on the back. Jason needs the title more, Alara, my mother rationalized. You're already so competent. Competence became my greatest liability. I learned to swallow the bitterness. Every slight was a drop in a bucket that would eventually overflow. I just didn't know when that bucket would tip. How much abuse can one person endure before they realize the family they are serving will never serve them back? I had a passion project, sustainable, community-focused housing, my design masterpiece. I presented the blueprint to my father, hoping for his mentorship, or at least respect. His critique? Too niche, Alara. Focus on what matters, the Easton legacy. They didn't just dismiss my work, they dismissed my independence. They kept me on a generous allowance, ensuring I never had the capital to leave or start my own firm. Money was their leash. They wanted me to be comfortable enough to stay, but poor enough to remain dependent on their name. My mother, bless her manipulative heart, would whisper, "Soon, you'll be indispensable. Just keep supporting Jason." Her affection was conditional, tied directly to my subservience. I was an architect whose ambition was constantly being redesigned by people who only saw me as a structural support for their favorite son. They forced me to choose between my purpose and their approval. Which one did I choose when Jason's greed finally crossed the unforgivable line? The emotional pattern was a tight knot around my soul. First came the criticism. Alara, you need to network more. Alara, why aren't you married? Always reminding me I was not enough. They didn't see a daughter, they saw a project that constantly failed their performance review. Then came the bribe. A designer handbag, a trip to Europe, or a new car. The gift was never a sign of love, only a transaction to purchase my silence. They thought material wealth could fill the emotional void they created. It couldn't. It just made the void more expensive. I kept falling for the cycle because a small, desperate part of me kept hoping the next gift would finally be the one thing I needed: genuine, unconditional love. But unconditional love is not for sale. That realization broke me down, but also gave me the clarity to start building my escape route. They taught me money can buy silence. I was about to teach them that silence can be the most expensive weapon of all. How did the cycle finally break? Outside of the office, my life was a rotation of quiet familial duties. When my mother was ill, it wasn't Jason, the loving son, who showed up. It was me, Alara. I handled the nurses, the appointments, the fear. My reward? You're better at this kind of thing, Alara. Jason is busy, and Jason? His biggest messes weren't just professional, they were financial. Gambling debts, bad investments. My father would pressure me to quietly transfer funds to cover them. I was the family's secret crisis manager, the one who kept the golden boy's image intact, sacrificing my own savings, my own future. I had signed an invisible contract. I provide the competence and stability, they provide the love. But they never honored their side. The love was always a withdrawal, never a deposit. This lifetime of quiet giving only cemented their belief that I was a resource to be exploited, not a person to be cherished. My loyalty was boundless, but it came at a price: the erosion of my own self-respect. I was so busy proving I was worthy of their love that I forgot I was worthy regardless. This pattern of quiet giving had to stop. The family needed a wake-up call, and I was finally ready to be the alarm clock. My entire life was a debt I paid for their approval, a debt that grew exponentially with every one of Jason's failures. When my father asked for one final, unimaginable favor, I knew the tipping point had arrived. What was the final favor that broke Alara, and how did she turn that moment of defeat into her greatest weapon? Jason had finally done it. He had mishandled the biggest civic project, a $50 million convention center. We were facing a lawsuit, and the Easton name was under attack. This wasn't just another mess to clean up, this was a career-ending catastrophe, and they knew it. My father didn't ask me to fix the blueprints. He asked me to take the fall. Jason can't be associated with this, Alara. He's the future of Easton. You need to resign. My career, my reputation, my clean record, all of it was supposed to become collateral damage to protect the golden boy's fragile ego. My mother chimed in, "It's just a job, Alara. Jason's reputation is the family's reputation. We need to present a united front. Family first, always." That phrase wasn't a principle, it was a tool they used to justify abuse. It meant, your life is secondary to Jason's success. They expected me to cry, to argue, to comply. I did none of those things. I finally saw the truth: they would sacrifice me entirely to save his public image. But if I was going to take the fall, I was going to ensure that fall was a strategic demolition, not a meek collapse. I looked my father dead in the eye and agreed. I'll do it. But I have one condition. That condition was the beginning of my entire plan. What was the single thing Alara demanded? Did they realize that by asking for my ultimate sacrifice, they had just given me the ultimate power? The silence in the room stretched, a silence filled with 2 decades of my compliance. I could feel the weight lift, the burden of seeking their approval was finally gone. My heart didn't break, it hardened. This wasn't pain, this was the cold, clean feeling of strategic detachment. My condition is simple, I told them. I resign, I take the blame for the $50 million disaster, but in exchange, you transfer the title of the family's digital archive server into my name. Jason smirked. My father hesitated, then laughed. A server? They didn't realize they had just traded their entire kingdom for a single, worthless piece of equipment. They saw metal and wires. I saw a trove of secrets, offshore accounts, suppressed lawsuits, and the real reason Jason got his Harvard degree. That server wasn't just data, it was the unfiltered, unedited blueprint of their corruption. And now, it belonged to me. The contract was signed immediately. Their relief was palpable. My satisfaction was silent. The stage was set. I handed them my resignation. They thought I was walking into the cold, outside world as a pariah. They didn't realize I was walking out with the key to their destruction. My next move was the family dinner, where I planned to serve them a truth they never ordered. How did Alara ensure her revenge was public, not private? I stood at the podium, reading the statement prepared by the family lawyers. I admitted professional oversight in the $50 million disaster. The biggest lie I ever told. My voice was steady, my eyes tearless. They thought they were watching a tragedy. I knew I was giving the performance of my life. My mother hugged me, a brittle, performative embrace for the cameras. You did the right thing, dear. Family first. Her words tasted like ash. Jason even offered a condescending handshake. They were celebrating my public humiliation as their personal victory. Hours later, I executed my part of the deal, getting the server. I didn't take the whole unit. I took the drives, tiny, easily concealed weapons loaded with decades of their financial crimes. They thought giving me ownership of the server was protection. They never checked if the data itself was still residing on the premises. With the server drive secured, I sent out a mass text. An invitation to a very exclusive, very urgent family dinner at the Easton Mansion tonight. I invited my parents, Jason, his fiancée, and crucially, 3 unannounced, high-profile guests from the city council. They thought they were celebrating their escape. I was preparing the perfect stage for their downfall. Who were those guests, and what did Alara plan to show them? The dining room was set for war, though only I knew the battle was commencing. I arrived late, finding my parents, Jason, and his fiancée already present. And there were my unannounced guests, Councilwoman Thorne, Senator Davies, and the head of the Boston Planning Commission. My father's smile was painfully forced. Alara, what a surprise. You didn't mention these guests. I played the dutiful daughter one last time. I thought the timing was perfect, Father. They need to hear the truth about the convention center fiasco. From the source, Jason seized the moment, raising his glass. A toast to Alara. Our poor sister took the heat for us. We'll make sure you're taken care of. His words were laced with pity and arrogance. They believed my resignation meant I was finally out of their way. I smiled, a real smile this time, cold and precise. No need, Jason. I believe I've already taken care of myself. I pulled out a small flash drive and connected it to the media center. The room went quiet. All eyes were on the screen, waiting for the family photos they assumed I was showing. They were so wrong. The title flashed up, Easton Architecture, the real blueprint. My father's jaw dropped. Jason started to stand, but I motioned for him to sit with a sharp glare. Before dinner, I said, my voice calm, I wanted to share a few slides. A presentation of our collective family history. The first slide was a simple balance sheet. But the numbers weren't revenue, they were the hidden deficits, showing a decade of Jason's fraudulent project accounting. The color drained from my mother's face. The high-profile guests leaned forward, immediately recognizing the gravity of the situation. Slide 2 was the email, the one proving my father approved the accounting cover-up years ago. The one where he wrote, "Protect Jason at all costs." I didn't need to speak. The emails, the dates, and the signatures told the whole story of corruption, nepotism, and fraud. Gentlemen and councilwoman, I announced calmly, what you are viewing is the truth of the $50 million disaster. It was never my mistake. It was the culture of corruption they called family first. My father finally found his voice, sputtering, "Alara. This is treason, treason." I countered. "No, father. It's an intervention." I took the fall, yes, but first, I copied the entire server. "This dinner is where I serve you the consequences." The air was thick with their panic and the guests' horror. What was the immediate fallout from Alara's devastating presentation? The 3 high-profile guests left immediately. Councilwoman Thorne's final glance at me was one of grudging respect. My father's pleas were met with cold professional detachment. The public-facing part of the revenge was done. Now it was time for the private, the personal cleanup. Jason was the first to explode. "You scheming, pathetic little traitor. You betrayed your own blood." His fiancée, startled, rushed out of the room. I met his rage with absolute silence, the armor I had spent a lifetime forging. His anger glanced off me, harmless as a feather. My father's fury was quiet but terrifying. "You've destroyed us, Alara. Everything. For what? For some petty, childish revenge?" He tried to appeal to the old me. The compliant one. But the old me wasn't in the room. Only the architect remained. My mother tried the manipulation. Tears. "Alara, baby, look at what you're doing to your family. You know how sick I've been." Her distress was real, but it was self-pity, not repentance. I gently pulled my hand away. The armor held firm. I spoke, my voice a quiet contrast to their chaos. "It wasn't petty. It was justice. You chose to sacrifice me for Jason's failures. I chose to sacrifice your empire for my freedom. I did not raise my voice, I did not cry. Their noise could not penetrate the steel resolve I had polished for my whole adult life." I placed a document on the table. "This is a statement. I will confirm that my resignation and oversight were forced, after you are all indicted. Until then, I am simply the scapegoat architect." The power had officially shifted. They were trapped. They needed my public confession to look credible, but I held the truth of their doom. Jason lunged, his face twisted with pure hatred. "I'll make you regret this, Alara. I will personally ensure you live a life of poverty." I merely glanced at the table, where the fine china now seemed cheap. Poverty? I just bought my freedom. That is priceless, Jason. I turned my back on them. No shouting, no final lecture. They had years of my voice. Now they would hear my silence. This was my permanent walkout. They thought they had extinguished a daughter. They had only ignited their own downfall. I walked out the front door of the Easton mansion and didn't look back. The war was started, and I was finally on the right side of the fight. But what were the consequences for the powerful Easton family the very next morning, and how did Alara ensure the world knew the truth? The sun rose on a new day, but for the Easton family, the world was ending. I was watching the morning news from my new studio apartment, sipping coffee, enjoying the spectacle. The news ticker scrolled, "Easton Architecture under investigation." The first shot had been fired, and it was a direct hit. Before leaving the mansion, I had executed the data upload. Not a full document dump, that's messy. I released a controlled, strategically edited package to 3 separate investigative journalists. The message was simple. The $50 million convention center deficit was just the tip of the Easton iceberg. The first reporter named Jason directly, detailing the falsified financial records I had obtained from the server. The Golden Boy's image was shattered into a million pieces. He was immediately suspended from the board. The title they protected with my career was now an indictment. Then came the hit on my father. I released details of the offshore accounts used for money laundering and bribes to secure city contracts. The reporter called it the architect of corruption. My father's reputation wasn't just damaged, it was toxic. I switched the channel just as a live feed showed police cars pulling up to the Easton mansion. The visual confirmed that my carefully constructed message had landed precisely. I imagined my mother, panicked, watching her perfect, fragile world shatter around the marble dining table. She had nothing left to cry about. They forced me to be the scapegoat architect, but they forgot scapegoats carry sins. And when I walked out, I took all those sins and flung them back into their gilded cage. My final message to them wasn't through words, but through consequences. It was perfectly tailored, perfectly timed, and perfectly destructive. My phone rang incessantly. The caller ID flashed, William Easton. The man who once ordered me to resign was now begging. I let it ring. They no longer had power over my silence, or my voice. I was the one who controlled the narrative. I was finally free, the revenge was complete. The Eastons were facing charges, and I had my quiet life back. But what happened to Jason and his fiancée, and did I ever regret the choice? The fallout was immediate and absolute. Within 48 hours, Easton Architecture, the legacy they had shielded with my life, filed for bankruptcy. The very foundation they built on lies and nepotism finally gave way. The building was collapsing, brick by expensive brick. Jason, the man they believed was too precious to fail, was drowning. His face was plastered across every newspaper, stripped of his titles and his fiancée. They wanted me to live a life of poverty. Jason was now facing the very real possibility of a prison term. My father, William Easton, the architect of corruption, was interrogated. The power he wielded through control and money was gone. He wasn't just losing his company. He was losing his purpose. He had nothing left to protect, and no one left to protect him, and my mother, the great manipulator, was left alone in the mansion, which was now collateral for the legal debts. Her tears were finally genuine, but they were tears of loss, not regret for her cruelty. She had spent a lifetime nurturing one child and sabotaging the other. Now, she had lost them both. While their world burned, mine flourished. I was designing again, my sustainable housing project, free from their too niche critiques and financial chains. I was an architect finally building something real, a future on my own terms. I watched the official indictment of William and Jason. The names I once begged to respect me were now symbols of corporate scandal. The phrase, family first, finally meant something. The family faced the consequences first. A few weeks later, I received a letter. It was from a law firm, announcing the final dissolution of Easton Architecture. The firm was now technically mine, but only a pile of debt and bad contracts. I threw the letter away. They had always wanted me to take over the firm. I had finally accepted, but only after it was worthless. My life was a blank slate. The past was demolished. What did I build next, and what final lesson did this revenge story teach me about true power? I moved into a small, sunlit studio downtown. No marble, no chandeliers, just clean lines and space to create. It was the antithesis of the gilded cage I grew up in. This tiny space held more true value than the entire Easton mansion. Here, my ambition was not dismissed, it was nurtured. The sustainable housing project, the one my father called too niche, became my reality. I wasn't building monuments to ego, I was building homes for people who needed them. My work finally mattered. The destruction I had caused was necessary to clear the path for the construction I truly desired. And Jason? He pleaded guilty to several counts of fraud. He received probation and a massive fine, saving him from jail time, but stripping him of every asset. The golden boy now works in a low-level sales job, a fate worse than prison for him. He lost the one thing he ever truly valued, the Easton name. I learned the final lesson of my revenge. True power isn't about the title on your door or the amount in your bank account. True power is owning your story, controlling the narrative, and knowing that your self-worth is non-negotiable. My parents occasionally try to contact me through legal means, claiming reconciliation. I don't respond. Their regret is rooted in consequence, not change. Freedom isn't just about escaping a prison, it's about not letting the memory of the bars define your new view. Interestingly, Councilwoman Thorne became my first client. She respected the cold precision of my plan. I learned that true allies value competence over blood ties. My ability to dismantle the corrupt system made me trustworthy to those trying to build a better one. My silence was my shield, my precision was my sword. I built the community center. It's not the tallest building in the city, but it's the most honest one. It's a monument not to wealth, but to resilience and self-determination. I am Alara, the architect. And while my last family project was a demolition, my future is a masterpiece of reconstruction. My story is proof. When a family weaponizes their love, the only path to survival is to weaponize your truth. Don't just break free, burn the bridge behind you. The message wasn't just sent, it went viral. The first headline confirmed it. The chaos I unleashed was now dominating the news cycle. Every major publication was running the same story. The clean image of the Eastons was a meticulously constructed lie. I had ensured the initial leaks included undeniable proof, timestamps, signed emails, and ledger entries. Data never lies, and their digital fingerprint was all over the corruption. Their years of using corporate firewalls to hide their sins were useless against the girl who designed the system. The talk show hosts had a field day. The $50 million convention center scandal was dissected, not as an accounting error, but as a family attempting corporate treason. They loved the irony, the daughter they silenced becoming the chief prosecutor in the court of public opinion. Jason's golden boy image was the first to completely burn. Details emerged of his gambling debts and the projects I had secretly bailed out for years. The public saw him not as the heir apparent, but as a spoiled, incompetent thief protected by his father's money. My father's political and business allies dropped him faster than a hot server drive. No one wanted to be associated with the architect of corruption. The old boys network that once protected him was now eagerly offering evidence to the feds. The story became a commentary on emotional abuse. Experts discussed the criticism bribe cycle I endured, the one where they traded gifts for my compliance. My silent suffering was finally given a voice, and a professional diagnosis. It affirmed that my revenge was a desperate act of survival. My mother tried the emotional blackmail one last time, sending public, tearful statements begging me to stop the destruction. I knew the tears weren't for me, but for her lifestyle. I deleted the messages. The armor was impenetrable. I was no longer the scapegoat architect. I was the whistleblower. The media framed my forced resignation as the final act of control that led to the family's demise. They tried to destroy my career. Instead, they handed me the key to my greatest public vindication. The biggest hit was the wealth. The mansion, the jets, the art collection, all seized as collateral or sold to pay fines. They had always measured love in dollars. Now, the debt of their lives was being paid with every single luxury item. While their downfall was televised, my transition was quiet. I was moving forward, not running away. The chaos outside only underscored the serene control inside my own life. I had traded a life of performance for a life of purpose. It was the best deal I ever made. The story was picked up globally. The fall of the mighty Easton name became a parable for corporate corruption and the hidden victims of powerful families. I realized my revenge wasn't just personal, it was a public service. I built a new network, allies based on merit, not blood. They respected my past precision, but they focused on my future vision. The empty space they left in my heart was being filled with authentic connection and purpose. I listened to one old voicemail from my father. Not from the day of the dinner, but weeks later. He wasn't angry, he was broken. "Elara, please. I need you to fix this." The word "need" was finally genuine, but it was too late. I was no longer his resource. I was my own masterpiece. I fulfilled my final promise. I released a statement confirming my resignation was forced, detailing the fraud. It sealed their fate and completed my own vindication. The scapegoat had turned into the judge, and the verdict was clear, guilty on all counts. I wrote a letter to them once, not to hurt them, but to explain. Then I burned it. They didn't deserve my explanation, and I didn't need the closure. My closure was already built into my new life, free from their shadows and the burden of their expectations. I presented my sustainable project to the city council, the same council that saw my family's demise. This time, I spoke with authority born from unimpeachable integrity. They gave me the contract. Not out of pity, but because I was the best choice. Did I ever regret it? No. The cost of peace was high. It cost me my family's love, or rather, the illusion of it. But what I gained was far greater, a life defined by my own values, my own truth. My revenge story isn't about destroying them, it's about building myself. It's about accepting that some bridges need to be burned so you can finally see the path to your own destiny. The Easton name is a footnote now. My legacy is the architecture of integrity. When a family tells you that family first means their control, remember this: true justice is self-sovereignty. That is the message I finally sent. Was this the end, or merely the beginning of Elara's new empire? What would you have built next? For so long, my parents' definition of success, the tallest building, the biggest name, was my prison. I thought losing it would crush me. It didn't. Success is not the inheritance you receive, but the life you choose to architect for yourself. My old contract with the world was based on their terms: compliance for security. My new contract is simple: integrity first, always. It felt incredibly liberating to prioritize my moral compass over their monetary one. That is the core of true freedom. I learned that family isn't defined by blood, but by those who respect your boundaries and celebrate your true self. My new circle is small, but the foundations are solid. We are bonded by choice, not coercion. This is my new tribe. People often ask if I regret the destruction. I don't. You can't regret demolishing a rotten structure, especially when you replace it with a monument to your own truth. The silence that used to paralyze me now gives me strength. I chose self-sovereignty over obedience. I chose me. The revenge was the end of a long, dark chapter. But the resolution is the quiet, daily construction of my future. What does the final blueprint for self-sovereignty look like? I discovered that not all dinners are war zones. My new team gathers for lunch not to plot corporate moves, but to genuinely celebrate each other's successes. There's no hidden agenda here. The air is clear, the laughter is real, and the foundation is mutual respect. My old family provided a ladder I was forced to climb. My new mentor, an ethical architect named Ms. Chen, offered a blueprint for sustainable growth. She corrects me without condescension and teaches me that ambition can be ethical, not aggressive. After a lifetime of guarding every word, learning to trust was terrifying. But true friends don't punish vulnerability, they honor your honesty. I finally shared the true pain of the Easton family's emotional war. They didn't pity me, they offered perspective and strength. The first holiday without the Eastons was strange. A brief pang of loneliness. But instead of forced silence and passive aggression, I had a video call full of genuine affection. This new quiet was infinitely better than the old noise. I traded guilt and duty for peace and self-worth. The toughest building I had to design wasn't a skyscraper, it was my boundary walls. No is a complete sentence. No compromise on integrity. My family taught me the cost of weak boundaries. My new life taught me the power of firm ones. I ran into an old college friend who apologized for avoiding me during the height of the Easton scandal. She hadn't known the truth. I didn't hold a grudge. My new freedom meant I could offer grace. The past was their mistake, but the future was our choice. My old family legacy was money and corruption. My new one is the impact of my work. It's measured in lives improved, not dollars earned. I used to chase a name. Now, I chase purpose. The difference between the two is the difference between a cage and a home. The letter I burned symbolized the end of my need for their validation. I realized the greatest gift I gave myself was the freedom from needing them to understand. Their opinion of me is their problem now. My energy is focused on the people who accept me as I am. My new life isn't built on a sudden grand act, it's built on small, daily decisions. Choosing to be kind. Choosing to be honest. Choosing to nurture my own growth. The best revenge is living well. The truest victory is finding joy in the quiet authenticity of my days. I received an email from a distant cousin who was genuinely sorry for the family's actions. I didn't invite them in, but I didn't push them away either. Some connections are worth maintaining, provided they accept the new terms: no gossip, no manipulation, just respect. I walked past the shuttered Easton building. It was a tombstone for a corrupt legacy. I felt nothing but a quiet sense of closure. The site of my old prison no longer held power. It was a reminder of what I successfully demolished to build something better. I had designed the perfect revenge, but the best project I ever built was the blueprint for my own life. Authenticity is the strongest material. The true resolution wasn't the downfall of the Eastons, but the rise of Alara. This is where my story ends, with a new beginning. I chose me. I chose truth. If you've survived a toxic family, what blueprint did you use to construct your own path to freedom? Share your story in the comments below. I spent my early career in boardrooms, designing on screens. Now, I'm on site, talking to the builders, feeling the concrete. This physical work is the antidote to the Easton's toxic world. I'm building trust and structures that don't hide secrets. They once mocked my love for sustainable design as a hobby. Now, my hobby is my full-time mission. I get to draw for the joy of creation again. My creativity is unchained. The best revenge is proving that your passion was their loss, not your flaw. My savings are modest compared to the Easton Trust Fund, but every dollar is clean, earned with integrity. Financial independence isn't about being rich, it's about being free from the need to rely on people who hurt you. The chaos of the past years left scars. I learned to address the internal damage, the anxiety, the hypervigilance, through stillness and self-care. Building a peaceful life requires as much discipline as revenge. It's the daily work of choosing calm over chaos. I started sharing my story, not for pity, but for power. My vulnerability became a bridge for others struggling with toxic family dynamics. My voice, which they tried to suppress, is now my most powerful tool. The message is simple: you are not alone. An old colleague from the Easton firm approached me, apologizing for not speaking up years ago. They saw the truth now. I offered forgiveness easily. I didn't need their validation anymore, but they needed my grace. Freedom means not carrying their guilt. The community center, my first solo project, is complete. It's functional, sustainable, and entirely honest. It is the perfect antithesis to the Easton legacy. The building stands as a testament to the fact that you can tear down the old and build something better in its place. I was sketching late, enjoying the quiet hum of my new life. Then, the silence was pierced by the sound I hadn't heard in months, my personal phone ringing, a blocked number. I knew who it was. They were testing the waters, hoping the storm had calmed enough for a fishing expedition. I answered, not out of weakness, but curiosity. A familiar, strained voice whispered, "Elara? It's me. Your mother." No formalities, no apologies, just the instant claim of ownership. I let the silence hang, forcing her to break her own silence. She started the performance. "We miss you. Your father he's not well. We were wrong to let you go." The apology wasn't for the emotional damage, but for the financial consequences. Her words were still a transaction, not a true connection. I interrupted, my voice calm and low, "Mother. You never let me go. You tried to destroy me." I walked away. "What do you want?" She stumbled. The script had been broken. She was used to tears and submission. She met the architect of boundaries. The truth spilled out. They needed my technical expertise to navigate the complex legal battle against the city. "Elara, only you know the server configuration." They didn't call the daughter they lost, they called the tool they broke and needed repaired. "I designed the server, Mother. And I designed its downfall. I am not the solution to your self-inflicted problems." The line was drawn. The bridge was burned, not with hate, but with the clear, cool logic of a professional cutting ties. She tried to bargain, to manipulate, to cry. I said nothing. Silence was my original weapon, and in this final standoff, it was still the most lethal. She finally hung up. The sound of the dial tone was the sweetest sound I'd heard in years, the sound of a door slamming shut forever. The ghost of the Easton family was finally laid to rest. I hadn't just defeated them, I had denied them access to my new life. I picked up my pencil. The project still needed finishing. The past was over. The future was just beginning. That call was the final test. I passed. But the biggest question remains, if you have to burn down your family's house to save your soul, what do you choose to build in its place? The sun rises differently when you're not defined by someone else's shadow. My mornings are no longer a frantic escape from them, but a calm walk towards my own purpose. I replaced anxiety with discipline, and fear with ambition. The first pillar of my new life was self-possession. In meetings, my voice is no longer a suggestion, it's the final word. I learned that confidence isn't volume, it's the silent knowledge that you are the most prepared person in the room. The professionals respect me for my work, not my lineage. This is a level of validation the Easton name could never buy. The media who tracked my family's downfall now cover my rise. The headlines shifted from scandal to sustainability. The narrative is mine now. I am not defined by the revenge I took, but by the responsible architecture I build. I learned to love again, not the manipulative, transactional kind of love, but the real, quiet kind. One that honors my complexity, not my connections. Finding someone who sees your power and doesn't feel threatened by it is the truest victory of all. The final legal papers from Easton Architecture were just a formality. The firm, now worthless, officially belongs to me. The symbol of their control is now my empty trophy. I used it as a footnote, not a foundation. The pain doesn't vanish, it transforms. The hypervigilance remains, but now it's channeled into precise risk assessment. My battle left scars, but those scars are my proof of survival and my certification of expertise. Sometimes I hear Jason's name, a blip on the financial news, a failed pitch. The sound evokes nothing but the distant memory of a rival I outgrew. He is still chasing the old game. I moved on to a better one. His loss is final because he never chose to rebuild himself. I teach now, passing on not just architectural knowledge, but the blueprint for ethical survival. I tell my students, integrity is your greatest asset. Build things that last and never sacrifice your soul for a contract. Every day, I wake up and consciously choose my life. I choose my friends, my projects, and my peace. Freedom isn't given, it's claimed, one deliberate choice after another. The ultimate power is the power of self-definition. I kept one small box of memories. I look at them sometimes, not with anger, but with the perspective of a historian. They are remnants of a demolished project. Necessary history, but not the blueprint for my future. Every beam, every foundation I now lay, is honest. No hidden compartments, no financial deceit, just solid, sustainable structure. My architecture reflects my soul now. It is built on transparency, the opposite of the Eastern Code. After the last call, the silence from my parents was absolute. It wasn't the silence of rejection, it was the silence of acceptance. They finally understood that I was never coming back to be their resource. My freedom was a closed case. My new rituals are about growth, not control. Planting a tree, watching it grow, it's a metaphor for the life I am now nurturing. True wealth is watching something honest flourish because of your labor. The harvest is self-respect. If you are trapped in a story that isn't yours, remember this: you are the author, the architect, and the contractor of your life. The moment I stopped waiting for them to change was the moment I finally became free. I still go by Alara Easton, because I claimed that name back. It doesn't belong to their corruption, it belongs to my resilience. My identity is built on my actions, not my birth certificate. I am the architect of integrity. The greatest structure you can build is a community that loves you for who you are, not for what you can provide. I built a home, not a mansion. And the people around me are my family. The family I chose, the ultimate lesson of my revenge. The best way to win against toxicity is to become so healthy, so strong, that their power no longer registers. I won not by tearing them down, but by elevating myself beyond their reach. My rebirth is complete. I am the new foundation. Now, I ask you, when your chapter closes, what lasting structure will you leave behind? True independence, I discovered, isn't one thing. It's three: financial freedom, emotional freedom, and freedom from their narrative. Without all three, the leash is still attached, even if it's invisible. The goal is to cut the strings entirely. My family used money as a weapon. For me, financial freedom is having enough to say no to anything that compromises my integrity. It's not about the size of the bank account, it's the purity of the income. Emotional independence means your happiness is not tethered to their approval, their acceptance, or their downfall. I am the sole owner of my self-worth. It is a structure so strong, their criticism can't penetrate it. They wrote my story for 30 years, the quiet architect. The scapegoat. My act of revenge was simply tearing up their script. Now, I write my own chapters. And I choose the genre: resilience and purpose. Recovery isn't linear. It's structural engineering. You inspect the damage, reinforce the weak points, and build a better support system. The foundation of my new self is built on therapy, boundaries, and the belief that I deserve peace. The hardest person to forgive was not them, but myself, for staying so long, for believing their lies. Self-forgiveness is the master key to true independence. It unlocks the cage and lets your future self walk free. Revenge stories are satisfying, but the best part is the resolution. The ending is not about what they lost, it's about what you finally gained. I gained myself. I gained my voice. And I gained true independence. I want you to look at your life right now. Are you living by your blueprint, or one someone else forced on you? If you're ready to start building your life on an honest foundation, hit subscribe and let's get to work. Thank you for listening to my whole story, the story of Alara, the scapegoat architect who rebuilt her own empire. Now, the question is, What happens when the foundations crack? Join me in the next video as we analyze the core failures of the Easton downfall. The community center opened quietly, without champagne or corporate press. It was celebrated with local laughter and the pride of honest work. The applause I heard here meant more than any standing ovation from the Easton board. This is my real legacy. I spoke to a single mother moving into the affordable housing unit I designed. She thanked me for giving her family a fresh start. Their hope is the currency I now chase. It is infinitely more valuable than the greed that fueled the Eastons. I saw an article about the liquidation of the remaining Easton assets. The headline was small, buried deep. Their fall is a footnote. My rising is the entire book. The greatest revenge is becoming utterly uninterested in their destruction. I teach young kids how to sketch. I realize the Easton's greatest flaw was their inability to sketch a future that included anyone but themselves. Empathy is a muscle they never developed. My success is built on seeing and designing for the needs of others. Easton used to mean corruption and cold steel. Now, when I sign a blueprint, it means integrity, sustainability, and hope. I took their name and filled it with my own meaning. I am the living proof that you can redefine your inheritance. Councilwoman Thorne visited the site. She didn't offer congratulations, but a simple, profound truth. You kept your word, Ilera. Trust is the currency I earned back. The ability to keep a promise is the strongest foundation a person can have. I used to need luxury to feel worthy. Now, I find joy in a quiet room, a good book, and the sunlight. My life is minimalist by choice, maximalist in impact. The simplicity is the defense against the old complexity. A major firm approached me for a lucrative deal. I turned it down instantly. It compromised my ethical code. The ability to say no to money and power is the final, glorious stage of independence. They taught me to second-guess every instinct. Now, I trust my gut. My inner compass is calibrated to my own truth. Self-trust is the only armor you need against generational manipulation. It is the key to enduring success. I build things that will stand the test of time, both physically and ethically. My foundations are deep and made of conviction. The only thing I inherited from the Eastons was the knowledge of what never to be. I used to dread the phone ringing. I used to wake up in a cold sweat, waiting for the next attack. That tension is gone. The greatest gift of freedom is the ability to sleep soundly, without fear of the morning. My family now is a collection of souls bonded by mutual respect and chosen loyalty. They don't demand, they support. We built a table where everyone has a seat and nobody pays a price for being their authentic self. My voice used to shake when I spoke the truth. Now, my voice is steady because I am only ever speaking my truth. This power is accessible to everyone who is willing to sever the ties to a past that is dragging them down. My revenge was meticulous. My resolution is simple. I chose light over darkness, integrity over power, and my soul over their name. The story of the Easton family is over. The life of Ilera, the architect of her own fate, has just begun. This small ethical trophy means more than any corrupt billion-dollar deal. It represents the victory of character over corruption. The foundation of my true empire is built on what money can't buy: respect, purpose, and peace. I look out over the city now and see possibilities, not prisons. I am building a better view, one ethical structure at a time. The revenge was temporary, the rebuild is permanent. This transformation is the ultimate living proof. Your survival is the greatest testimony to their failure. Don't waste your second chance. Use that energy to build the life you deserve. You are the living proof that a rotten structure can be torn down and replaced with something beautiful and strong. I am Ilera Easton. This is my resolution. If you want to know the exact psychological and legal mechanisms of the takedown, click the video on your screen right now. I thought all ties were severed, all accounts settled. Then, buried deep in a stack of old mail, I found an envelope with no return address, but a familiar handwriting. It was from Jason. My stomach didn't drop, it merely tightened, the way you react to a distant, harmless threat. Elara. I write this from the ruins. I see what you did. Not the collapse, but the silence after it. He wasn't looking for forgiveness. He was trying to understand the nature of the weapon I had used, patience and detachment. I always thought power was the thing you took. You taught me it was the thing you refused to let others take from you, your integrity. It was a moment of shocking, brutal self-awareness from the man who had always been their golden manipulator. The mask was off. Father is gone. Mother is withdrawn. I am alone, Elara, for the first time without a script. It's terrifying. The luxury is gone. He hadn't just lost money, he had lost his identity. I didn't pity him, I merely observed the natural consequence of his choices. I saw your building. Your little community. Is there room for repair, Elara? Can one build a new foundation from ashes? Tell me how. He wasn't asking for me. He was asking for the blueprint. The Easton DNA was still there, seeking the easy solution. I didn't write back. The answer wasn't in a letter. The answer was in the years of difficult, honest, grinding work he had always tried to shortcut. You can build from ashes. But you must first admit you caused the fire. Jason wasn't there yet. I watched the paper burn. The final act of severing the psychological tie. My silence was not revenge, it was a firm, unshakable boundary. The greatest architects know when to stop designing and let the structure stand on its own. The Easton name still exists, but it no longer holds the weight of a dynasty. It's just my name. They tried to destroy me with their legacy. I rebuilt myself and turned that legacy into a testament to my own strength. They taught me self-love was selfish. I learned it was the foundation of resilience. You must protect yourself fiercely. I am my most important client, my most valuable project. My well-being is non-negotiable. If I had replied, it would have been one sentence. The only blueprint you need is an honest admission of guilt. But even that was a gift I wouldn't give. He needed to find his own truth. My closure is my own. They taught me that success cost everything. I learned that true success costs nothing but your loyalty to yourself. The price I paid for my freedom was the past. The return on investment is the life I am living today. From my new vantage point, I see the city as a series of structures, some strong, some corrupt. My job now is not to tear down the bad, but to build the good so well that the bad becomes obsolete. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give them, it's a burden you set down for yourself. I forgave the past so it could no longer occupy space in my future. My love for my new life is the final, perfect seal on the envelope of my past. Jason's letter was the ghost of a story I once lived. The only ending I needed was the one I wrote with my own two hands. My greatest creation wasn't a building, it was this life. The life of Elara, reborn, redeemed, and ready. For every survivor out there, your greatest act of defiance is your happiness. Don't chase revenge, chase radical self-respect. Let your success be the living proof. Your peace is the unanswerable rebuttal. If you've been inspired by this story, let me know below. What was the hardest tie you had to sever to find your freedom? Your honesty helps the next person start building their own true structure. We are building a community of survivors here. I have shown you the final resolution. But the story of the rebuild is ongoing. Next time, we're diving into the psychology of the golden child versus the scapegoat. Click here to understand the roles that keep you trapped. I showed you how I dismantled an empire built on lies. But the real story is what I built after the demolition. Revenge is a chapter, rebuilding is the entire book. Your past does not define your future foundation. Only your current integrity and will can do that. If my story helped you see your own chains, subscribe. What structure are you tearing down today? Before you build, you must set the borders. Lesson 1. Boundaries are your first defense. Say no to toxic access. Lesson 2. Documentation is destiny. The paper trail saved me. Always get their lies, threats, and promises in writing. Lesson 3. Emotional detachment is a weapon. Don't let their drama become your reaction. Act from logic, not from the wound. Lesson 4. Find your ethical purpose. True power isn't in crushing them, but in building something incorruptible. And the final, most crucial lesson, Lesson 5. Your peace is the ultimate revenge. The fight is over when you stop caring about their opinion. These lessons require strength, but where do you find it? Next time, we're unpacking the psychology of resilience. Click here to see the video.